Thank you. Are you letting China off the hook for these 90 days, and do you really believe that they will follow through with non-tariff barriers and remove those?
Non-monetary tariffs, yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to follow through. I think they want it very badly. I think they want the deal very badly.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Big Money Show. I'm Dagan McDowell, joined by my co-hosts, Taylor Riggs, Brian Brimberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and joining us for this hour, Great Hill Capital Chairman Thomas Hayes. Markets in rally mode as the U.S. and China agree to slash tariffs for a 90-day respite. Charles Payne joined us in the last hour. He says this is a great day for America.
It's just a beautiful morning to be an American. And you know, I feel bad for people who resist this that much, because it's not going to be like this forever. You know, nothing stays the same forever, and it was slipping away from us, and someone had to sound the alarm, and I'm glad it has been sounded.
Thomas, how do you invest in this kind of environment? Because it is a market that is very much driven by what the White House is doing. That's right. So it's trade, tariffs, trade negotiations. Where does this go from here in 90 days when the reciprocal tariffs on all the other nations expire in July? But then the president also comes out with this order on prescription drugs. Yeah. And if we can take a look at the prescription drug stocks coming up in a minute, you're really investing based on, I don't want to say whims, but certainly the maneuvering of the White House. And if this was so bad, wouldn't the drug makers be much lower?
That's absolutely right. I think what Charles said about a lot of people resisting it is so true. You know, right at the lows in early April, you had one record selling in the hole by hedge funds and by CTAs. They sold $1.1 trillion of equities at the lows in April. So now what you have, as you've had this quick move up, and then today the good news, is you have a whole slew of forced buyers that are not only covering their shorts, but are forced to chase up. So that is going to persist for a little bit. And then you couple it with the fact that even in the face of all this uncertainty and all the headlines that you mentioned, Dagan, earnings came in twice as good as expected. 13.4% earnings growth versus 6% estimated. Estimates didn't even come down that much for 2025. They came down from 270 to 265, about 3.6%. Oh. But 2026 held up in the face of this. So now that the floodgates are open, that they've kind of resolved this looks like a reasonable path forward. Now managements can have some confidence in moving ahead with investment, moving ahead with the different projects that they had on hold, and we're going to get through this.
To Charles's point earlier, I didn't expect anything to come, because the way they were pitching this as we were going into it over the weekend was that these were preliminary conversations. How well have we seen those go between countries over time, especially with China? And so not only, Dagan, to your point, did we not get the sort of 50% whisper number, we got under that, but all of a sudden, I believe it was yesterday afternoon, you know, they're talking about what they're calling a trade deal. And so I think that this is a market that has been building up and pricing some of this in as we've led up to it, but now saying exactly to your point, things are pretty good out there. So if all of a sudden the tariff situation is off the table, then we're in pretty good shape. I think that's a little bit of a mistake, though, because I look at this 90-day pause and say this isn't really a deal. And if they can't come to you know, some sort of more formal agreement, I believe it was President Trump saying earlier, these things are very hard to paper, which they are, then that the market could see some disappointment.
I would say one thing about that, Jackie. It's like Warren Buffett always said: if you wait for the robins to sing, it's already spring. Right. So, you know, we did a conference call with our clients on April 7th when things looked really, really dark, and we went company by company, and we went through their free cash flow, we went through their revenues, we went through their balance sheet, and we said, look, this is headline noise. These are durable businesses that have made it through multiple cycles. So ignore the short-term headlines. Yes, it's creating a lot of volatility.
You know what they survive the most? High rates.
Yeah, well, I think Bessent is on top of that, managing the long end of the curve. They're going to deregulate the banks. The banks are going to be back in the market, and he's going to be able to take control of the long end of the curve. I remember when the 10-year yield went up to 4.80, and everyone was saying 5%, 5%. I said, we're going below 4 before we go above 5. And I'm holding true to that. And I think the second half, the biggest surprise in the second half of this year is going to be you're going to see mortgage rates, 30-year fixed rates under 6%, and you're going to see a boom in housing and construction and suppliers to housing that we haven't seen in years, and that's going to be fueled by the Taylor Riggs of the world that are having new families, moving out to the suburbs, having
Are you
kids.
moving to the suburbs?
You buying a house?
No.
Buying extra cars,
But the sentiment
millennials.
is there.
You bet.
You know,
Go ahead.
Dagan, two interesting facts, and you guys feel free to disagree, but let's assume the 10% baseline tariffs on $3.3 trillion worth of goods is an additional $330 billion. If you're at a 21% corporate tax rate right now, that pulls in $525 billion. Adding that 330 from the 10% baseline puts the U.S. corporate tax income rate to an effective rate by some analysis up to 34%. That's exactly where it was before Trump cut it in 2017. So you go from about a 21 to a 34, all being equal. But that's not including what could be a corporate income tax cut and a corporate tax cut, which then could offset that and maybe make things better than they were pre-2017. So I also wonder if the market is not yet fully pricing in the benefits of that tax cut coming down the road. My second point, you guys, has always been, as we know, and we're consistent on this program, the markets are not the economy. And I want to ensure that while I love the enthusiasm of a market rally, that companies are still incentivized to bring manufacturing back to America, because that really was the whole point of this. How do we ensure that even if there is an only 10 to 30% tariff on China, that those companies can still invest in the long run in good paying manufacturing, high quality precision jobs here in the U.S.? Because that really, to me, is what people really voted for.
Give them a 15% corporate tax rate then.
Bingo.
You've got,
you bring it full circle, Brian.
Thank you. The policy is on the table. The tax policy, the regulatory policy to do exactly what you're talking about is on the table. So I think the president, this is the first time in the tariff debate this time around where the president under-promised and over-delivered.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they've gotten control of who's doing the promising and who's doing the delivering. And let's not forget about that. I think Scott Bessent did a great job in this. But for the first time, we went into the weekend with a high number. We came out with a low number. And that just works a heck of a lot better than the other way around. And I think the administration noticed it. I think they'll keep going with that. We've got 90 days, okay? I don't know if we're going to get a deal after 90 days. I'm actually not, like, China's the one entity where I'd say let's be tough on a deal, because these are the guys who have really been bad actors. But I think the 90 days gives us a chance with some of our other allies to get some really good deals on the table. And imagine if you could keep this up with China and you get India and Vietnam and the EU and all these guys lined up. This market is going to love it. And if Republicans can get their act together and not let the moderates wag the dog here and get a good tax cut done with corporate tax cuts, man, I might be with you in the second half of this year that it could be really impressive.
Yeah, there's no question. You know, it's interesting. Trump put out that tweet or truth on April 8th, and he said, now's a good time to buy stocks.
Yeah, no.
And that was
In
the bottom.
hindsight.
And it absolutely rallied. And then last week, he did the same thing. He said, watch out. You know, there was a little uncertainty last week before the UK deal. Watch out. America is going to boom. And that was the intermediate term bottom. So you got to listen to the president. This guy is on fire. I mean, his calls have been working, and it's substantiated by earnings. And now we're getting certainty. And I think we move to growth, just like Brian was referencing, when we start the massive tax cuts and the deregulation with banks, with industry, with bringing manufacturing, make it easy to get zoning and so on.
So this is not a full decoupling from China. It is a strategic decoupling, as the Treasury Secretary has said, just with certain industries, say semiconductors. They have fully agreed to open China according to President Trump. And I love this part, that the Chinese delegation signaled that it was the Biden administration's fault that the Biden administration did not hold the Chinese accountable to the previous trade deal. So that shows how to play some political, play the politics of it all. Charlie Gasparino is standing by with reaction from Wall Street and parts unknown. Charlie, what you got?
I'm reading a tweet here that says Charlie is a shill for Trump.
Which is not true at all, which means that they don't know you whatsoever.
Let's be clear here why the markets are up. You know, we're back to square one. You know, Trump and China, they both blinked, and we're right there. The tariffs are right where they were before Liberation Day. There are zero concessions from China during these 90 days. This is, in my view, a capitulation, and much more on our side of the fence. Now, you got to ask yourself, why did we capitulate? And listen, you don't have to be an expert. You could just have to be a simple country reporter like me to figure this out, because I speak with small businesses all the time. I just came back from the Job Creators Network Conference, which is Bernie Marcus's lobby advocacy group for small businesses. And these are Trump supporters. This is hugely part of the MAGA coalition. And I can't tell you how many small businesses were complaining that they're either going to have to raise prices, they may go out of business. They were in desperate shape because they sourced so much from China. Stuff wasn't coming across. Farmers were getting mad because they can't sell their wheat to China. So, you know, this pause, let's be real clear here. The markets like it because we're back to square one. And that's where we're going to be for the next 90 days. Now, going forward, you know, the devil's always in the details with Trump, with China. And let's be real clear. He signed the China trade deal, I believe it was in early 2020. Am I right about that, guys?
Yes, correct.
Yes. So it was his to enforce for a year, not Biden's. And whether he enforced it well is unknown. Now, obviously, we had COVID and there was a lot going on in the world. But, you know, trust me, you know, so yes, Joe Biden deserves blame. Trump at that point did not enforce that trade pact. The Chinese do not show much willingness over time to give up much on their concessions. Let's hope they do this time. I think the best we can hope for is both sides blinking, because our economy, and, you know, it's funny, guys, it would have started this week from what I hear. The small businesses, the pressure on them, their supply chains was really ramping up. If you notice, stuff wasn't coming into the port of LA. I mean, it was stuff from China was dramatically, you know, decreasing. We do import a lot of parts from China that are manufactured here. Retailers went to the White House and did tell them that, listen, we're going to eat the costs for the next month or so, but after that, can't guarantee anything. You're going to get inflation. And, you know, right now, Scott Bessent is busy putting the genie back in the bottle. I also think what's fascinating here is the markets obviously like Bessent. I think him emerging as the trade spokesman and not Peter Navarro is probably adds a couple 100 points to the Dow here.
If you listen to the Commerce Secretary, Lutnick, and his ASB, attention-seeking behavior, he said last week, he said, Scott is working on China, and I'm doing every other country. Like, Scott's working with me on a few Asian countries, but that's it. And listen, I thought, if you listen closely to what he says, Lutnick, that is, he's always kind of taking a shot.
Yeah, he's always there, right? And by the way, we should point out that he does have the president's ear. He is the Commerce Secretary. He raised a lot of money for the president. The president knows him a long time. They like each other. So remember, he's not going, and Trump, unless he does something really crazy, he's not going anywhere. If you notice, Peter Navarro's not going anywhere. He's still around.
Yep.
And by the way, I don't hold the same contempt, obviously, that you do for Howard Lutnick. I have been critical of him in the past. But
I'm just a country reporter. I'm calling it like I see it.
Yeah, what country? But in any event, yes, no, I agree, and so am I. But I'm just telling you that he is going to have a say here. But, you know, the street, at least, is interpreting this as, you know, a very, very much a Bessent ball game, Bessent-driven effort, and he's going to level the playing field. But we should, again, point out, why are we up? We're not up because of some great art of the deal. We're up because we have capitulated for the next 90 days. We're back to square one. Back to you.
I have more questions for you, but we have
Go
to
ahead.
go.
All right. Whatever.
Love you
Go
much.
ahead. Ask one. Go ahead.
Small businesses are still paying a 30% tariff on goods coming out of China.
Absolutely.
Is
It's
that
better
enough to save them?
The way they were telling me, and by the way, I do not own a small business, so just so you
Right,
know,
but
I got
just-
it.
these are-
anything below 30, anything below 50 was considered, we can live with it. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? And maybe we can source it maybe someplace else. I mean, I think that 145 thing was insane. 80% was very bad. You get below 50 and you could start living with it, and you could start eating some of the price increases.
Now we have to jump.
All
Thank
right.
you, Charlie
Later.
Gasparino.
Bye.
Coming up, President Trump on his way to the Middle East. Can he drum up major investments for America?
Now I'm about to depart on a historic visit. Some of you are going with us to, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates.
President Trump is now on his way to the Middle East. He'll meet with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia tomorrow, and the focus is clear. The White House says the trip is almost entirely about business deals. Trump reportedly wants to return to D.C. with $1 trillion in new U.S. investments. And when you look at the track record and how he's been working on the relationship with the parties in the Middle East, Thomas, you might think that he will return with those kinds of business deals, because the Saudis already have changed their tune with respect to how they were dealing with Joe Biden.
Yeah, there's no question about it. The interesting thing about MBS and Trump is there's a level of mutual respect, and they've kept energy rates low. They've kept the oil prices low. They've kept pumping. That is a massive tax cut for middle-income America, middle-class America. And I think that he will come back. Number one, he's going to get them to spend huge on defense, which is going to help our defense companies. He's going to encourage them to invest in data centers, in infrastructure, in AI. So this is a very, very constructive relationship, both in terms of energy prices, which kind of offset maybe some of the short-term impact with the tariffs, et cetera, for everyday people, and creating massive amounts of jobs in the United States. So not only has he gotten it done, $600 billion commitment, he will get it done. I'll bet that goes up to the trillion number, not in the next 30 days, but over
Not
time.
so distant future.
Exactly.
We'll call it that.
Exactly.
And also, I mean, we've seen a Middle East that was stabilized under Trump and then completely upended over the course of the last 4 years. You've seen Iran and its tentacles and proxies within the region. We've seen October 7th and the brutalities that Hamas committed on the Israeli people. And so part of the trip, I'm sure, too, while he is going, Taylor, to get money and investment to come back to the United States, is also to kind of repair relations and help stabilize.
And you know this region with your history better than anyone else here, but there is that saying that I'm fond of let's keep our friends close and our enemies closer. The closer we are to them, then the more difficult it is for them to build relationships with Iran, Russia, and China, right? So let's get that investment. Let's have the American presence overseas known. I love the ingenuity about the way they're thinking about AI and energy going forward. There are people that obviously know the way energy works. They also could build fresh water when all they're surrounded by is salt water, right? So when you think about the ability and the innovation that they can bring, I think AI could be a really interesting partnership with us in the Middle East.
Any views on Qatar, I was going to ask you, and the jet, the gift?
He was asked, the president was asked about it this morning.
Yeah.
And one of the sticking points was if the president would be using this jet after he left the White House before it would be in his presidential library. And he said he would not be. I mean, what I think about it personally kind of is irrelevant. I think more than anything, it is a pox on Boeing. Boeing is just such a gross American embarrassment. And it shines a light on what a security risk Boeing is to the United States, quite frankly.
To me, I think it's like, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
Like a little bit of the Qataris kissing the ring, too, because while everything was upended in the Middle East, they kept saying, come here, we're neutral, you can broker deals here, but they were not necessarily acting in the best interest of the United States or Israel either. And now all of a sudden a plane appears.
I will quote Charlie Gasparino, of all people walking on planet Earth. He said, how do you say no to that?
Right.
Like, how do you turn it down if you're trying to, ahead of a trip to that region, how do you say, no, thank you?
The president this morning
Keep
said,
your jet.
if someone gives you a free putt on the golf course, you take it.
Right.
Exactly.
Who said that? Sam Snead.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I would, because you were talking about oil prices and OPEC, well, Saudi Arabia pumping more oil. Oil prices are down since right before Inauguration Day, 20%.
Yeah.
And so they're down in the low 60s. And that's a huge benefit for the United States and even our producers here, the shale producers can make money even at that price.
Real quick.
It's a very good thing that the president's going to make friends there and do deals, because there's another big country in the world that would love to have the most influence in that part of the world, and it's named China.
Yeah.
So if you go there and you push them out, you move us to the center, good things happen for America.
All right. Well, a third major outage at Newark Airport in just 2 weeks. We're going to tell you what's to blame this time. That's after the break.
Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Another equipment outage bringing operations at Newark Airport to a halt. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warning it'll take weeks of flight reductions to give technicians time to fix the issues plaguing a nearby air traffic facility. Lydia Hu is at Newark Airport with more. Hey, Lydia.
Hey there, Brian. We do expect to hear from Secretary Duffy any moment now about the latest here at Newark Airport. But we do understand that he is proposing reducing the number of flights that can land and depart from Newark to 56 per hour to give technicians an opportunity to make those repairs. Here's what he said yesterday. Listen here.
I hate cancellations, and I hate families who come with little kids that are sitting there for 4 hours. I've done that myself on occasion. It's hard, but I want you to get to where you're traveling. And if that means slowing down flights into Newark, we slow them down to make sure we can do it safely.
The equipment outage yesterday was the third here at Newark in the past couple of weeks. And Duffy says the communications here at Newark can be fixed within a matter of a few weeks, but he's concerned that the glitches here could be repeated across all of the nation's airspace if the entire air traffic control system is not updated. And that's why the FAA has a proposal to modernize the system. They want to replace 600 radar. They want to build 6 new air traffic control centers and make other important upgrades. But of course, these upgrades will take time. Secretary Duffy says a matter of 3 to 4 years. So in the short term, we are still seeing travel headaches here at Newark. Today, we're counting more than 80 cancellations, both inbound and outbound. And we also have a ground delay that remains in place through the evening hours, all related to air traffic control staffing issues. Brian, back to you.
Ouch, Lydia. Thank you for that report. We appreciate it. All right, who's got the biggest beef with this on set? Jackie, I'm going to go to you first. I think. What do you
You
make?
look like you got. Well, you look like beef. Hey, it's usually me.
Yeah, Jackie
true.
this time. Jackie, okay, so you've interacted with this airport. What do you make of what's happening right now, and what the Transportation Secretary is trying to do here?
Well, his long-term vision is to completely redo the system. And I can't help but go back to the point Dagan made the other day about what Pete Buttigieg and the Biden administration tried to do, basically wasting $30 billion on something that wouldn't work. And he's talking about what a new system would cost would be roughly the same. We could have been there already had we done it properly and not wasted that money. So I get so frustrated. And I'm one of the people, I've flown a few times this year. I had a strict no-fly policy before 2025, but I've broken that. And so, you know, I've experienced part of what's out there. There's an airline not to be named that I'm currently fighting with who's gaslighting me and telling me the delay that I experienced was not real. It was real. And actually, it was a Newark flight, by the way. So, you know, I think people are frustrated. I think they want to see their tax dollars be put to better use. I think they want to see better service from airlines on top of it. Like, sometimes you go to the airport, you're traveling in this country, and you feel like you're in a third world country. And it just shouldn't be that way.
Taylor, how are the airlines responding, pitching in on this? I noticed that they're out there doing a lot of PR on it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I wanted Tom to weigh in on a comment I'm about to make, if I may, because for me, this always comes down to the consumer confidence issue. Dagan, you've brought this up, and I read it again this morning in Deal Book, that yes, flying is still way safer than driving a car statistically, right? That is like the facts as we know it right now. But when I start to hear customers increasingly, like my parents last week, say, oh, we are supposed to fly into Newark. Should we be changing our flight? Where do we fly into? That signals to me that the average consumer who isn't in the cash flow analysis of Delta Airlines every day is starting to get a little worried. Now, I agree with what our guest said last week. Absolutely, we do not want the private sector airlines involved in this. This has to be a Congress TSA issue. But Congress, as of now, isn't doing anything. They have to appropriate that money to fix this outdated system that is 30 years old. Until they do that, when I now have parents asking if Newark is no longer safe, what does that mean then for consumer confidence? And then does that urge Congress to step up?
I think they will step up. You know, you used to fly into New York Airport, and Trump used to say it's like the third world country. They were ugly, they were dim, they were outdated, they were old. They eventually got them fixed. JFK looks pretty nice.
LaGuardia
looks pretty
better.
nice.
Yeah.
Newark is starting to come around. I sat in the airport in Orange County on Friday. Bump, 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 bump. United to Newark. That was my direct flight all the time. Once a month I come out here. I was supposed to be here 3 o'clock in Newark. I got to LaGuardia like midnight. So it's just part of the thing. They rerouted me. They'll work it out. I will not be flying into Newark for the next few months. I'll be flying into JFK or LaGuardia. But as far as consumer confidence, I think they'll just adjust. They'll adapt. They'll get things fixed. They'll get the money from Congress probably quicker than we expect because a lot of people have been hurt by this, and we'll move forward. From an investor standpoint, I would use the opportunity. Any dip in high-quality airlines is an opportunity to buy. Consumer confidence with these trade deals is going to come back. Travel is going to accelerate into the summer like it does every single year. And we'll be looking for opportunities.
Oh, you're so glass half full today.
Opportunities in the crisis.
He's very optimistic. Dagan.
The airlines have cut seats heading into the fall. The big the capacity cuts will hit, I think, in the fall. The planes I've been on are full.
Yeah.
Flying into Newark, it's more of I think, a delay issue than it is a safety issue. And knowing Sean Duffy incredibly well, professionally, the American people couldn't ask for a better transportation secretary, because what you saw, we played that clip from Meet the Press yesterday. We're going to hear from him later this afternoon in a short while. He's being frank with the American people. There are going to be delays.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. We have to cut the number of flights. And what a breath of fresh air, just to look directly into the eyes of people who are flying and say, we are doing this to ensure safety and security and getting you to where you need to be. With safety in mind, first and foremost, and trying to fix this problem that has been developing and growing and mushrooming for literally decades and decades.
It's very true. He's not mincing words with what's going to happen. I'm going to pack my camping gear when I travel this summer, just in case I have to, pitch a tent in the airport. Yeah, I'll bring a lantern with, maybe a little Coleman grill. Could be actually fun. We'll see. Coming up, wealthy travelers are shelling out thousands to have their phones taken away. We'll tell you about the digital detox retreat after the break.
Human human interaction great again, you guys. More Americans are looking to take a break from their phones. In fact, some travelers are now seeking out phone-free trips and paying up for it. A new survey reveals that almost 20% are searching for vacations that force them to ditch their technology entirely. Brian, I'm one of them. I've taken 2 spiritual plus physical retreats with my sister. And the best thing is when you arrive, they give you a little cloth phone. They call it your sleeping bag for your phone. You put your phone in there.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have it in your room, but that means that you can't take it out on the retreats and the activities. You have to be very intentional that if you want to check your phone, you have to walk all the way back to your room. I love it, but I hate that I had to pay to do that because I don't have enough willpower to do it on my own.
Wait, how did you paid them for the little sock you put it in?
No, I paid to go on the
experience.
retreat.
Oh, you paid to go on the retreat?
Yes.
You pay for somebody to scold you if
Yes.
they see you with it.
Wow.
Brian, put your phone away.
I could scold you for that
Yeah.
on set here.
I don't listen to
Hey, you know, here's the crazy thing about it. So people love doing this, but it takes them a while to get there. So like the first 24 hours, they're
You
like,
have
"Where's
the
my phone?
shakes."
Where's my phone? I gotta look something up." But then like 48 hours in, they're good, and by like the third day, you know, they're wearing a headband and tie-dye shirt, and they're like, "I don't want any technology, man."
Yeah, man.
But it's good. I think this is going to grow a ton because when people experience being away from this stuff, they get happier because they're not looking at everyone else's life and doing the FOMO thing or doing the, you know, oh, I'm so bad compared to these people, or their online profile is so fake great. And I think it's wonderful. At the cabin, we don't even get internet because the walls are made of concrete and the signal won't come through.
Wow.
Love
And
it.
that's how we do it. And I only had to buy a house to do that.
Well, I think I'm still coming out ahead financially. Jackie, you self-admittedly need one of these 2.
I do. I can do it when I'm on vacation. I do like to disconnect. And I've learned also when I'm out to dinner with people now to put either the phone in my purse or upside down on the table to be present and to engage when I'm around people. I try to do that more. Where I'm getting stuck is at night, in bed, scrolling, emails, texting, constantly on the phone, which is so disruptive to your sleep cycle. So that's what I need to work on.
Well, you could just become a golfer because if you pull your phone out while you're
Yes.
golfing, people will give you the evil
Bad
eye,
etiquette.
do not mess up the round. So I do it in small doses, 4 hours at a time. But beyond that, I think if I was disconnected for 1 day or 2 days, my clients would fire me. So I need to be available, but 4 hours at a time.
Even at the retreat, you get to use the phone in your room.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't disconnect that
Send your
long.
clients on the retreat, then they'll never contact you. It'll be the
Exactly.
best of all worlds.
Dagan, this is all about sort of, I don't know, for me, and I probably am a hippie at heart, reconnecting away from the technology, grounding, being present, living your best life in the present moment, you know, all of those things. I'm curious how you think about it.
These retreats are very White Lotus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen White Lotus.
Yeah, I haven't
People
seen
keep
The
it.
telling me
most
that.
recent season of it, where they take your phones away.
Is this the
kind of
Connie
a-
Britton one? Was it the Connie Britton one?
No, that was the
In
first
Thailand.
Okay.
season. It shouldn't be hard, and you shouldn't have to pay to go away to do it. I use my phone on the weekends. I play games and just look at things, but I can easily put it away and put it in a drawer. If I didn't have to worry about family members or my father, I just don't, like, give me a book. Give me books on my Kindle and sit outside. I can live without it, and it's glorious. But then somebody will text you from work.
Yeah.
So
like-
I've often wondered if you just get the old-fashioned flip phone or some way of getting texts and phone calls without all the other stuff, so you could feel like if there's an emergency with a family member or work person, then you have it. And if you didn't have the apps, then maybe you wouldn't be
I
anyway.
actually just want an old rotary
Yeah.
phone with an answering machine,
Okay.
and leave me a message, and I'll get back to you when I feel like it.
Quickly,
That's
Tom,
it.
this, though, is the price that we pay. I don't have to report, well, I do, but one, in theory, doesn't have to report to an office, but it's because your computer is right here.
That's right. With opportunity comes responsibility. So if you can be out and about, you can be on your life, doing your life, but available. It's kind of a good blend and flexibility. People have more flexible lives. They can pick up their kids at soccer practice, but still be plugged in, answer emails if it's during work hours. So we just have to kind of weigh the pros and the cons, and I think just shut it off at certain times, particularly when you're playing golf or on the weekend, or certainly in bed. Maybe get a White Lotus box outside your bedroom door and you drop the phone in before you go.
I'm grateful. I am grateful that my elderly father, who's 88, he'll be 89 in July, knows how to use his phone. And his tablet, he has sent me a stream of photographs of like my mother's garden for the last 2 weeks. Yeah, here's a peony. Here's a peony opening. Here's a peony cut and sitting on the breakfast table.
He should start a business where people can subscribe to those kind of texts because it would make their life better. So if you're going to have your phone, get texts from Dagan's dad about flowers.
Yeah.
He could make a ton of money.
Shrubs.
Taylor would pay for that.
Something ate the hosta on the back porch.
That's either a...
very distressing.
That's a deer or a bunny.
Hey,
it's a deer.
Hands off the bunnies.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying they eat the hostas. I know
I don't care.
Yeah, deer.
I have good evidence on
It's the deer ate it.
I will say Casey and Tom, keeper of the corporate Amex, should approve a trip. We can all go on a spiritual retreat and go phone freeze. It would be a group bonding experience, better than the escape.
Yeah, what did you want? No, what
Escape room.
you wanted us to go to the Super Bowl? Too expensive.
We can all just do. Oh, she said
you know what?
I'm busy that weekend.
We can just sit out in the sunshine and listen to the Grateful Dead. It's the same thing.
Trucking.
With Jay Powell.
We're going to go.
No, we're not. I can tell you we're not doing Jay Powell. I tell you right.
Grateful Dead fan.
We're going to do that.
Like he's the only Grateful Dead. Oh, good gravy.
You just stirred the pot. You have no idea.
We don't.
I watched the show. I knew that would get to Dagan.
All right. Come up tomorrow. Make sure to watch us at noon Eastern. Steve Forbes, Lou Bassanese are with us to break down all the latest on the China trade front and perhaps the continuing equity rally that we may see. We're coming right back.
Franklin Templeton, your trusted partner for what's ahead.
Stocks jumping today after a major breakthrough in U.S.-China trade negotiations. And take a look at shares of Tesla. It is zooming back over $1 trillion in market value, with the stock rallying to its highest level since February. I just want to get your take, final thoughts. You were very optimistic, glass half full on this market. You think we continue to rally from here?
I think we're going to get some follow through in the next few days. I think everyone's going to come into the market finally. All the holdouts, all the people short covering, they're going to chase up. And then we'll get some consolidation probably a few days out, some sideways grind, maybe a few percent pullback just to punish the Johnny-come-latelys. And then we push to new highs. I don't know if that's in a couple of months or 3 or 4, but that's the trajectory that we're on for sure.
All right, we've got a 2.6% gain on the Dow, Taylor, but we've got more than a 4% gain on the NASDAQ.
Yes, and a more than 3% gain on the S&P 500. And as I've often quoted, at a 58.30, we're well above Liberation Day of a 56.71. So if you just stayed the course since April 2nd, you would be ahead. My concern, as it always has been, Jackie, is I love a 90-day pause and a de-escalation, but I don't want this to create another 90 days of what if. What happens 90 days from now? Are we all just going to import and do massive pre-ordering now because we don't know what 90 days brings from now? Does that further increase the imports, which then further increases the negative GDP? I want the certainty back for good. I'm not a 90-day and then what? So that's what I'm waiting to see.
Market musings?
You're too worried about GDP. Who cares? Don't worry about it. You can make all the necessary adjustments to get at what's actually happening in the U.S. I actually agree. I think you could see another surge of imports, build inventory for the later part of the year. But don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. Did we have Tesla up there?
Yeah, okay.
Did we have Tesla up there a second ago? I want to see. Do we have, Tesla
It's up 7%.
It's up 7%. Tesla. Why do we say Tesla? There's no Z in there.
That's how Elon pronounces it,
Yeah,
Tesla.
but does he know what he's talking about on that? I don't know.
Because it's Nikola Tesla.
Tesla.
That's how you would say it.
So why is it up? Because they sell a lot of cars in China, and when this whole tariff thing was going on, people in China, like liberals in America, said, we're not going to buy your stuff anymore.
Yeah,
We're
stick
not
it to
going to
them.
buy Americans. So now they're thinking, but I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if folks in China, I think BYD is here to stay in China. Tesla has some challenges in that. I'm just still say Tesla.
I'm not correcting you. Because I'm not that much of a.
I will not be corrected.
Yes, exactly. Take a look at the 10-year Treasury. The yield is up today. It's close to 4.45 at the moment. I'd watch that 4.5 mark. In recent history, that's been a good time to buy, and then it rallies. Rally, that's from Happy Days. But that's a concern. We're still gravely deep in debt as a nation, and our borrowing costs need to be kept under control. So far this year, the yield has been in a nice range since Inauguration Day, but if it gets, that's Mr. Besant's job, and he's got a plate and a plate and a plate full at the moment.
We'll see if he can be as cool as the Fonz, though, Dagan. Happy Days.
Rally, that was Richie. Rally.
That was Richie, okay.
Well, remember, Besant's only busy with China. Letnick's doing everything else.
Yeah, said Howard.
Sure.
All right, we're getting that wrap sign, but we do have a lot of green on the screen today, and I'll just reiterate by saying the Dow is up 2.5% now, more than 1,000 points. We'll see if we keep that into the close. Charles?
All right. Dagan mentioned a Happy Day.